Hey folks, so I'm Adam Davis. Welcome to FinTech Insider On Air episode 58. Last week David was joined by Matt Leibowitz, CEO and founder of Skate, which is the global brokerage app that launched in the UK last week. It's super interesting episode. Do check that out on David's LinkedIn page and the 11FS YouTube channel. This week we're talking about accounting for small and medium-sized businesses and what straightforward and simple to use cloud-based accounting software can do for SMBs. To talk about this, I have Edward Berks, Global EGM Financial Partnerships at Xero. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you.
What does EGM stand for?
It's Executive General Manager, I think. Which
oh, cool. Okay, fine. I should know that. Okay, fine. Let's scratch that out. No, all good. Okay, cool. So look, small businesses make up more than 90% of all businesses across OECD countries. There were 5.8 million small businesses in the UK at the start of 2019. 21% of SMB owners feel that they are not knowledgeable enough about their accounting and finance solutions. Bearing all this in mind, there's clearly a big market for accounting software. Companies supporting SMBs in managing cash flow, money management, reconciliation, admin. We could start in a lot of different places, but I suppose from your perspective, first of all, how important are SMBs to the economy?
So you've been through some of the stats. They are the growth engine of most Western sort of first world economies. About 50 to 60% of employment in most of those economies, with the vast majority of new jobs coming from small business, and typically getting on for 50% of GDP. And we'll kind of talk through, I guess, how well served that sector of the economy has been. But for a long time, small businesses have been kind of the poor relation in terms of access to tech and support, yes, and access to capital, a whole bunch of things that are important to them. But they're a real important pillar of the economy. Yeah,
because I think that the idea that SMBs have been underserved is something which it's like the phenomena has sort of rode the crest of the wave of the last few years. But I suppose from your perspective, why has that been? So historically and from a legacy perspective, why has that happened?
Yeah, so I think it's just the economics of delivery. So in the corporate space, I guess bigger companies typically have the budgets and the resources to access technology like SAP and Oracle and some of those enterprise systems. I think retail markets have been really well served, and actually think about the revolution in things like mobile banking. I think the economics of delivery, as we've moved on to digital delivery of financial services and entertainment services, has really benefited consumers. And I think the last recipient of all of that goodness has been small businesses. But I think the good news is it's kind of really catching up pretty quickly now.
Yeah, massively. I think I remember from my time in banks, it tended to be that SMB propositions were sort of mixed in with retail propositions, and it sort of came to the market as one. So if you were an SME owner, let's say you were a one-man band even, you tended to have to go through or down the retail banking path in order to have banking full stop, which seems kind of crazy when you think about the needs are so massively different to your average Joe.
I think just on that, if in the UK, for example, they're getting on for 4 million sole traders, so self-employed. Contractors, that type of market, freelancers, and that gig economy is driving more activity in that space. The financial needs of those individuals are really very close to retail financial needs. If you are a bigger company, mid-enterprise, again, you're probably accessing tools in the financial management space, for example, from people like Microsoft, NetSuite, some of those guys. But you need to be a pretty big company to afford that technology, and right in between, there are lots of VAT-registered businesses in the UK, about 2.2 million of them, that really are not one or the other of those two, and that's really the space in which we play.
Actually, so that's interesting. Just very quickly for the viewers, I suppose, how do you segregate's a horrible word, but how do you define, I suppose, what is small, medium and big?
Yeah, so there are various accepted definitions of micro businesses, etc. We tend to play in what we call the small business space. Again, our customers typically employ people, so somewhere between sort of 2 and 10 employees.
Cool.
Typical turnover would be up to kind of 2 million, but we have a bunch of customers who are big outliers on that measure. We have customers turning over £100 million.
Cool. Doing very well then.
We tend not to serve the sole trader market, although we inevitably have customers in that space, but it's not really our core market today.
Cool. Okay, that's an interesting. We'll actually come back to that in a bit. Apparently 66% of companies in the United Kingdom are at risk due to the mismanagement of accounting paperwork. In your opinion, is that a fair stat?
Depends what at risk means.
Yeah, I mean that's a loose term, but you know.
So the accounting journey, and I'm always conscious accounting seems kind of quite dry, but accounting at its most fundamental point is about compliance. So ensuring that as a trading entity, you pay the right amount of tax, VAT, etc. So that compliance part of accounting is typically the start of a journey. Where it gets a bit more exciting is that once you are on top of your business, once you understand your cash position, your cash flow, getting things like we talked about payments, making and receiving payments, we'll come on to that, accessing working capital is much easier for businesses that are in control of their businesses, that have plans, that can forecast their cash flow. And all of those types of capabilities, as you kind of move more broadly into financial management, are enabled on the accounting platform.
Yeah.
Again, as Xero grows, we'll often talk about Xero being a platform as you start to plug not only financial services, but other business application services, et cetera, into Xero.
Cool. Okay, cool. From my perspective, well, so I suppose for those who don't know about Xero, I can't imagine there's too many people listening who haven't, but do you want to give us like a one-stop shop when you were founded, how you set up, geographies, etc.?
Yeah, so an unusual business in that Xero is a Kiwi business originally, founded by a guy named Rod Drury in 2006. Rod was a serial entrepreneur and was running into a basic problem that it was difficult for him to stay on top of his finances across multiple businesses.
Right.
And this was back in the heady days of desktop software. And so the only way you could really tune into your finances was by physically being in the same place as your accountant or financial controller, massively limiting. And Rod felt that the cloud offered an opportunity to provide that capability in a much more flexible fashion. So that was the beginning of the journey in 2006. Very quickly, we recognised the importance of accountants to small businesses. Yeah. So being a small business owner can be a lonely old affair. You have to be covering lots of bases. You're the head of HR, you're the head of finance, you're the head of retail, whatever it might be. And as a strong theme, a lot of small businesses turn to accountants for advice as their favoured port of call. So early on, we recognised that catering for accountants was also important, and beyond that, the ability to plug other services onto that accounting platform as a system of record. So early on, we were investing in APIs, marketplaces, and bringing that right up to today. We now have well over 2 million customers around the world. We're 3,000 employees. Our biggest markets are Australia and New Zealand, where we are hugely dominant in those markets. The UK, where we have over 500,000 customers.
I was going to ask you, because the last stat I had was about 400 and something thousand, 60. So you've gone up. So that's cool.
So we're well over 500,000 customers in the UK now, and have growing businesses in other English-speaking regions, being the US, Canada, South Africa, and Hong Kong, Singapore.
Awesome. Yeah, because I mean, so my dad's an accountant. It does feel that a lot of, a relatively old school accountant I'd probably say, but it does feel a lot of the functionality that you can find on Xero is basically the sort of work that he does, but the kind of intangible work. It's the stuff, aside from obviously just the straight up accounting, the advice piece, the sort of, I suppose, the different and I suppose general services that you're providing, the value added services you would say, over and above just the core accounting. It's an amazing concept, isn't it? I mean, what I was going to ask is, do you find yourselves potentially or thinking that you're disrupting that industry or aiding that industry? This is the accounting industry.
Very much. So accountants are central to everything that we do. So actually, I used to work for Microsoft, and I would attend conferences and meet people who thought Microsoft was pretty cool, and that was generally a good company to work for. Yeah. At Xero, the customer advocacy is like off the charts. Yeah. We are part of a revolution which is changing the way that accounting practices can be set up. So we're seeing lots of kind of born in the cloud businesses. We have some great businesses that are sort of returning to work mum businesses, female-led businesses. One of our accounting partners works in the south of France through the summer and has the flexibility to do that because of the platform that she's using to advise her clients. The biggest thing we're doing for accountants is just giving them time back, making them much more efficient.
Well, this is the point. Yeah, I think the value that, because actually you're right. I mean, you go to the accountants probably once during the year when you obviously need to submit your tax returns or whatever else, and then the calculators come out and everything's got to add up.
That's the old school. We're trying to get away from that.
No, well, yeah, I'm thinking about what my dad used to do, but the advice continues through the year, and I suppose that's the bit. That's the real value which you guys are unlocking, because you're making everything so automated that you're able. You're giving the accountants the ability to do that. I suppose in terms of the 500,000 in the UK, is that split between SMEs and accountants, or is that?
No, that's all SMEs. So we work with about 11,000 accounting firms, certainly north of 10,000 accounting firms in the UK. Cool. So it's great penetration into the overall accounting community. Something like 98 of the top 100 accounting firms in the UK are Xero partners, so they're kind of recommending Xero as a platform for their small business clients. Cool. And so absolutely, we work with accountants to help them then serve their SMB customers. And
I was going to mention XeroCon later on, but it's kind of a good place now, because I know the guys at 11FS, we obviously attended last year. This is a gathering of thousands and thousands of accountants in a room, and it looks cool. Explain this phenomena.
Yeah, and again, look, you have to come to it. I know
my dad's an accountant, so I can say this with legitimacy.
11FS have covered the event, and it's been great to have 11FS there. So this is a conference for accountants. Tends to be the most kind of digitally engaged accounting firms. Sure. If I suggest that our biggest kind of sponsoring partners last year were people like NatWest with their ventures operation. We had Starling, Tide, Revolut, TransferWise, Stripe, Go Cardless as big exhibitors. There's a very, very strong fintech theme. Huge appetite from those accountants who are kind of getting on top of the compliance bit now to be able, exactly as you say, to engage more frequently with their clients and advise them. Yeah. And that advice, the financial services is part of that. Accessing working capital, we're working with people like iWalker and Market Finance and Satago in that space. But it's also areas like, how do we employ people? How do we manage people? How are we doing payroll? Yeah. And so that the breadth of advice and speciality that we see with accountants is breathtaking. We see accounting firms that are agricultural centric, for example, and have literally thousands of agricultural clients. And again, so that XeroCon is a festival of all things kind of digital accounting. Yeah,
it's cool. So your role in particular, do you oversee, I guess you've got about 700, 800 different integrations. It was 700 and then we came in the room beforehand and I was checked. 800 I mean, do you oversee, I suppose, the contractual and partnerships and whatever of all those 800?
Yeah, so we have the way we break the business down, we have a partnerships function globally. I am actually responsible for our financial services partnerships, and then I have a colleague who runs what we call our broader ecosystem. We are hugely keen to provide value to attract application partners onto the platform. Cool. And whilst it's appealing to access our 2 million customers, which is a carrot for many application providers and other service providers to join, there is huge value, of course, to customers in being able to integrate retail solutions, hospitality solutions, staff scheduling and rostering solutions. If you're creating transactions in a point of sale environment, actually you have to account for those transactions at some point, and simply automatically integrating those transactions onto the Xero platform just saves time for accountants, but also for small businesses.
Cool. Okay. And then, so I suppose one of the things that we're knee deep into proposition development here, and one of the pieces of advice that we normally give clients is that, look, if you're going to do a platform play, let's just say, you've got to think about what you want other people to provide, so third parties, versus what you want to build yourself, because that's your USP. So I suppose you've got 800 or so integrations. It's all probably really awesome, and I know your API suites are top class. How much, I suppose, do you give a view to on how much of the platform, how much of the stack you want to keep for yourselves? And I say that only because there's other SMEs, SME challenges, I suppose, coming into the market that you wouldn't have necessarily thought would touch accounting, but are starting to encroach, as in nouveau challenges are starting to encroach on your turf a bit. So is there anything in the flow that you think, you know what, we would never partner with that, or we would never even open up integrations to that because that's core to what we want to do?
Yeah, really the core thing that we do is the ledger.
Yeah.
And so we're unlikely to partner with a business
clearly.
whose primary business is offering kind of exactly the same solutions. But beyond that, we're really committed to being an open platform. So we have credit control solutions within our platform and partner with businesses who do that. We have what we call data automation solutions where, and again, some of this stuff kind of sounds mundane, but it's really important. It's just the ability to take photos of receipts and bills and digitally capture those to kind of streamline that work.
Yep.
We have our own solutions, but we partner with businesses that provide that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we think it's really, really important that our customers get choice, not only as to the services that they engage with, but actually then how they consume some of those. And so whether they're on the Xero platform or whether they're on banking platforms or line of business application platforms.
Cool. Okay, fine. And then we were just talking about it before. I'm going to mention the word payments. Again, from a relatively banking background, I know a lot of the conversations at a high level when you talk about SME banking is the biggest threats was anyway, and probably still is, the accountancy platforms having the ability to make payments in and out. You've got some news?
Yeah. Hey, so getting paid and making payments is really important for small businesses, as is understanding cash position, as is accessing working capital. We've got a couple of strategic partnerships already in place with Stripe and Go Cardless that enable Xero customers to invoice their customers and allow their customers to pay immediately, either via direct debit or on a card via Stripe.
Cool.
Those have been in market for some time, hugely well received by our customer base, lots of engagement. Actually, at XeroCon last November, we announced a new partnership with TransferWise out of the UK, really to support the ability for Xero customers to initiate a bank payment from within the Xero platform. Again, sounds, unless you've kind of lived the pain, it sounds a little esoteric, but the reality is the alternative to doing that, if you're lucky enough to have two screens, is you've got your internet banking open on one screen, Xero open on the other, and you're manually transposing that stuff. The new proposition, which is Pay with TransferWise, just dramatically streamlines the making payments, but also reconciling those payments. Yeah,
and this goes back to the core customer jobs and we've done plenty of propositions around SME banking, reconciliations, just making payments, manual, all of this stuff comes up, and just making their lives easier so that they can get back time, which is generally sort of, I guess, the overarching job, which is giving me back some life to actually think about how I can strategically make my business better rather than just getting sort of in the weeds of the admin.
Absolutely.
So this is pretty good. We talk about payments a little bit. Again, people who know when I come on, normally open banking comes up as a topic. In terms of payment mechanisms, are you thinking about becoming a PISP? Is there something around payments initiation that you guys are looking into? Or again, is the journey still relatively fragmented that it's a bit of a no-go?
Yeah, so look, I mean, open banking is a big topic in itself. So Xero, I think, is probably one of the largest consumers of open banking services in the UK now, as we're migrating our customer base onto the open banking platform to deliver what we call bank feeds, which is just the ability to pull banking transaction data down automatically onto the Xero platform.
Cool, yeah.
Historically, we had a whole bunch of kind of direct arrangements with banks, and we're now migrating that onto an open banking platform.
How difficult has that been?
So, migrating hundreds of thousands of customers onto a new experience is never
not easy.
An easy task. I have to say it's going well, but of course, open banking is not without its glitches.
Yeah.
I hope it would not be contentious to kind of question whether the payment experience over open banking is fully ready for scale corporate adoption.
Sure, yeah.
And so we're working really closely with the OBIE. I think those guys are great.
Yeah.
In the first instance, the here and now need to be able to initiate a bank payment from inside Xero is being addressed with our relationship with TransferWise. And so nothing in the very short term, but again, I think open banking more broadly will open up other opportunities that kind of streamline and frankly remove cost from the way that companies make payments get paid.
Yeah, okay, cool, that's good. One thing I wanted to mention is, I suppose, and you tell me whether I'm wrong, one of the key customer jobs that we come up with SMEs is always, I kind of understand where my business has been, even though again that's a pain from a reconciliation perspective, but I can kind of understand it, but I don't know where my business is necessarily going. Yeah. What's, I suppose, the killer piece of functionality that you guys have got, either via partnerships or not, in terms of how you provide, I guess, foresight to SMEs so they can actually make a decision to say, I need, some credit, or, this is how I'm going to manage my cash flow, or, where's my money going? Is there because this is, I think, when we get clients in from all we speak to SMEs, this is pretty much the number one thing that comes up. So is there like a magic answer to
cash flow management? One would think that in this age of AI and machine learning that there would be some magic answer. For businesses to understand their financial position and be able to forecast their financial position, they need to have really up-to-date financials.
Yeah.
And so whilst we provide tools to make it really easy for customers to reconcile bank daily, for example, not all customers do. And so the quality of data is kind of really important. The other piece is how kind of consistent your business is.
Yeah.
So if you have a business that's been running for 2 years and every month your incomings and outgoings look just the same,
yeah,
pretty easy to say the 25th month is going to look like this. Again, a lot of small businesses just are not that regular, which is where accountants come in. So we have a number of fantastic forecasting partners, people like Fluidly, Futurely, Float. Yep. They have to mandatory. They all have to begin with the letter F in the UK, who are providing various forms of forecasting and cash flow management tools. But where they really come to life is where accountants get involved.
Right.
And so you talked about is the accounting engagement like a once a year thing or even a once a quarter thing under Making Tax Digital?
Yeah.
Ideally, it becomes a lot more frequent than that. Your accountant can be your best friend in helping you stay on top of your finances. Now, that not only avoids surprises, so cash flow kills a lot of small businesses. The FSB suggests that 50,000 businesses fail every year in the UK through poor cash flow.
Really?
So
okay.
it's a big impact.
Yeah.
But actually in terms of things like your credit score and, of course, being able to access either working capital or investment capital when you need it, you're in a much stronger position if you've got a really effective grasp of your cash flow.
Are you thinking, I'm just thinking back to what you just said in terms of using the accountants in that kind of advisory role. Are you thinking of, is there a service layer that you would provide in terms of actually capability, a Xero capability to provide accountants, as in accountants start working for you, or again, is that kind of stepping on the toes of the people that you're partnering with?
So it's not something that we do right now. Again, we have a number of vehicles we use to bring accountants together with customers and customers together with accountants. So we have something called the Advisor Directory, where if you are looking for an accountant with a particular skill set and a particular region, you can go and find them.
Cool. Okay.
Indicatively, about 70% of all of our new customers come to us via our accounting relationships.
Fine. So okay, fine.
But 95% or 90 to 95% of our customers are engaged with an accountant, and so because of the superior life expectancy of businesses, the better results they get by working with accountants, we work hard to push them into the arms of accountants.
Great. Okay, that's really cool. I did want to touch on business model because I kind of understand that there's so much going on from a partnerships perspective, from just straight up accounting through to services, value-added services, entertainment, Xero, everything. Like you've got revenue lines coming all over the place, and yet your geographies are quite, I suppose, in mature markets and moving into mature markets. Is there like a magic formula that says, look, here are like our three main revenue drivers, it's a subscription model across these? For accountants, it could be that. Like, is there a way to sum that up? Because I think people will be really interested to understand just how you guys have expanded and how you're actually driving revenue through multiple different ways. Yeah,
look, the core of the business today is over 2 million subscribers paying £24 a month is how much you pay for Xero, which is probably less than most of us spend on coffee. Yeah, that's pretty good value. So it's very, very cost effective. That is the biggest single revenue line. We then have other services that we provide to accountants, practice tools. There are other things that we do. But what's sort of interesting, I guess, is a growing revenue line associated with things like financial services and commercialization of some of our ecosystem relationships. And so there's ways that we can bring more value to customers by more tightly integrating some of those partnerships. Right. And they obviously provide broader commercial opportunity. Yeah, because it's cool, because I think the concept of a marketplace, I suppose, in banking, if I'm thinking about it from a banking perspective, hasn't massively caught on, albeit some of the infrastructure's there, but actually the usage is I'd agree. You guys have cracked it in a massive way. Is there like a magic formula in that, and obviously overseeing that side of the business? Is there
is there a magic formula in terms of the way that you've done deals with your partners, or is it just more the product's so good that it's just almost sold itself?
So I think there are a few things that we do. We do a lot in-app where we are able to recommend particular application solutions based on insights we have about customers.
Cool.
Always using that data appropriately and in line with customer expectations. We obviously have a lot of engagement with our accounting partners, and again, there is this huge appetite from accountants actually to kind of understand what can I recommend to my customers who are in retail.
Yeah.
If I've got customers who are Amazon traders, how can I help them? And the good news is there's generally an app for that, right? The good news is we can generally recommend something that's going to improve the lives of the accountant, but actually then also dramatically improve the lives of the small business owner.
Cool. Okay, great. I'm trying to think if there's anything that I've massively missed. I don't think there is. I think that's pretty much, is there anything, I suppose, that you would want to tell people that, you guys are doing? Is there anything coming up, or is there anything, that you want to say to the world and public at large about Xero that maybe we didn't cover?
No, I think it's a really good rattle through. I think an interesting area right now is kind of a degree of convergence between banking and accounting, and we're seeing...
I was going to mention that right at the end. I was going to throw it in as the last question. But
no, and so look, that's an area I get asked about a lot. So you have people like NatWest have made an acquisition of a business in our space called Free Agent. You've got Starling has just announced or just released some very sort of simple accounting capabilities, and so I think lots of spaces there are lots of players looking to compete and innovate, and so the landscape's super interesting.
And I suppose, is this I won't say the end of SME banking for banks, but I guess, are you, from an account perspective, you don't necessarily need to own that that underlying account given where you're coming from in the value chain. But is it, and it's not necessarily a core, I suppose, strategic point, which is to, just try and circumvent the banks, but it is kind of looking like it could turn out like that. Is that something that's, I suppose, on your radar? And I suppose, do SMEs coming to you and saying, well, we kind of like having that interaction with our bank, or actually, do you know what, make our life simple and let's just, skip over there?
Yeah, no. Hey, look, it's so nuanced. So I get asked, are we going to become a bank? And actually the question is, well, what is a bank these days?
Yeah.
So will Xero become like a traditional bank with branches or something? I mean, it's easy to say no to that. If you look at the services that are being provided by banks to small businesses, clearly there's a kind of a business current account at the centre of it. But actually it's about payments, it's about FX, it's about access to capital. And we're already seeing massive fragmentation of the market, some really exciting new entrants. And we're seeing a growing propensity of small businesses to engage with those types of services in complement to their banks. Our number one approach to all of this is partnerships. So we work really well with, I mentioned NatWest, we work really closely with a lot of the neobanks, and we're working very closely with the fintechs, but both in the payment space, the access to capital space, the FX space. And again, that's also about choice. So I think our customers tend to bank with a wide range of banks, and what we want to be able to do is support them rather than try and corral them down a particular route.
Cool. Just one more from me from a geographies perspective. How adaptable, I guess, is the Xero platform, your services at the moment, if you were going to move into, let's say, Asia or into other areas? Is there, in the way that accounting works, I guess, not being a specialist at all, but in the way that accounting works, the way that tax works, is the platform adaptable to those geographies, or is there work to do to get to?
No, it is, but actually, so language is the thing you think of immediately, but actually it's tax regime that can vary greatly by region, and then of course, given the business model that we have, we need great relationships with accountants in region, and indeed great relationships with banks, and so we have moved into new regions. If I look at South America, I look at Singapore, Hong Kong. We've opened office in Canada in the last sort of year or so, and so that growth continues. But actually, it's a relatively intensive activity to enter a new market to address all of those strands of business.
Yeah, sure. So the investment up front in order to build that network, the network needs to be there. Okay, got it. Cool. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Adam,
that was awesome.
Thanks so much for your time.
No worries. And that's all we have. Where can people find out more about yourself?
So either on Twitter, Ed Berks, or on LinkedIn or at Xero.com.
Yeah, I was going to say all Xero, but you guys will probably know that anyway. You can find me at AdamD8 on Twitter or 11fs.com. Thanks very much for tuning in. If you want any more insights like this, why not listen to FinTech Insider Pod, which is our weekly pod. Also, we've launched our newsletter, so be sure to sign up at 11fs.com/newsletter for a snack-size FinTech roundup to the week. There you go. If you want a topic discussed on air, hit us up on podcast@11fs.com or just tweet us at FinTech Insiders. And we'll see you next week. So bye for now. Thanks very much.